which is so important to our shared future as a united kingdom. The Northern Ireland of today is home to world-leading universities, cutting-edge AI and cyber firms, advanced manufacturers like Wrightbus, who are helping the transition to net zero, international fintech and data firms, a number of which announced hundreds of millions of pounds of investment just 2 weeks ago. And Northern Ireland is also playing a vital role in UK defence, not least with the return of shipbuilding to Belfast. 3 new vessels for the Royal Navy, thanks to Navantia's purchase of Harland and Wolff. And the deal announced by the Prime Minister earlier this year to supply Ukraine with more than 5,000 air defence missiles to help them repel the Russian invasion. Missiles made by Thales in Castlereagh. And all of this is underpinned by stability. The stability brought by the Good Friday Agreement, the stability of security, thanks to the huge efforts made by brave officers of the PSNI and the emergency services to keep people safe, as I saw in Ballymena, after the terrible racist disorder, and that's what it was earlier this year. And the political stability that the Northern Ireland Executive has forged by getting on with the task. And I want to acknowledge the leadership of the First and Deputy First Minister and all the members of the Executive. You know, compulsory coalition isn't easy, but they are showing that they can deliver for Northern Ireland. And what is a Labour government doing to help? A record financial settlement over the next 3 years, the largest since devolution, funding Northern Ireland above its level of relative need. On top of this, £46 million a year of UK government funding to support local growth, £30 million announced last month for Northern Ireland's science and tech sectors, the investment that will come through our new defence industrial strategy, taking all steps necessary to strengthen Northern Ireland's place in the UK internal market. And in May, following the trade deals with the United States of America and India, we reached a new agreement with the European Union. Now, Conference, the Tories' Brexit deal actually made it harder to trade with our biggest, nearest and most important trading partner, and it created a unique problem in Northern Ireland. Now, the Windsor Framework, to which we are committed, seeks to deal with this. But be in no doubt that an SPS agreement with the EU will benefit firms and consumers across the United Kingdom and in Northern Ireland by cutting red tape on the movement of food and drink products. And while we've been getting on with all of this, what does Nigel Farage say? He wants to scrap the whole deal with the European Union. Extraordinary. Damage to the economy, damage to businesses, simply because of a destructive ideology, and inexplicable to firms and farmers who can't wait for this new agreement to take effect. And that's not all. Conference, the Good Friday Agreement enabled Northern Ireland to move away from the bloody and brutal trauma of the Troubles towards peace and progress. It was, without doubt, the greatest achievement of the last Labour government. It took courage. It took patient negotiation. And yet, what does Nigel Farage want to do? He actually wants to undermine the Good Friday Agreement by walking away from the European Convention on Human Rights. And after all that the people of Northern Ireland have been through, I cannot think of anything more irresponsible. It's wrong, it's reckless, and we've got to make sure it never, ever happens. And how do we do that? By taking on reform, for their revelling in grievance, their relentless desire to divide, and their willingness to tear things down. And by us, Conference, standing together, getting on with the things we promised so that we can put our case to the people at the next election. Now, conference, dealing with the legacy of the Troubles is hard. And that's why, for so long, it has been the unfinished business of the Good Friday Agreement. The Tories' Legacy Act was roundly rejected by victims and the courts in Northern Ireland. We need to help those families who lost loved ones in Northern Ireland and right across the United Kingdom, including over 200 military families who are still searching for answers. A fortnight ago, the Taoiseach Simon Harris and I announced an agreement on a UK-Ireland joint framework. The Irish government will legislate to ensure full cooperation with a reformed Legacy Commission, and I will soon bring forward legislation to implement our manifesto commitment to repeal and replace the Legacy Act. And we will also introduce rights and protections never included in the Tories' legislation that will apply to any Northern Ireland veteran. After all, our veterans sacrificed so much to protect the people of Northern Ireland and to help bring about that peace. And I want also to say this about all the families who have shared with me, before I became the Northern Ireland Secretary and since, their stories of grief and loss and unimaginable pain about what happened to those they loved so much. When we hear those stories, and they remain with us always, we have a responsibility to do everything that we can to help those who have waited so long for the truth. And now, a way forward is finally within our grasp. Now, conference. The story of Labour governments of the past, of which we are now so rightly proud, and the story of this government, when it comes to be written in the years ahead, are about what we achieved in the face of adversity. Everything that is worthwhile involves effort, determination, and never, ever giving up. After all, just remember from whence we have come. 1945, Clem Attlee. Debt was what? Over 200% of GDP. Rationing continued after the war. There was an energy crisis, the freezing cold winter of 1947. And yet that Labour government created the National Health Service, legislated to preserve beauty for posterity through the National Parks Act, and helped establish NATO, which to this day remains the bedrock of our security. 1964, Harold Wilson's great victory, and a Labour government that changed society for the better. The first sex and race equality legislation, the abolition of capital punishment, equal pay, the open university that has given so many people, the opportunity to bring out the talent that is within each one of us to illuminate our world. Go forward to 1997. Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. So much achieved, including that Good Friday Agreement. And now, the government of 2024 and our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. Now, we know that we are once again living in tough and difficult times. But our history teaches us that we have succeeded before, and we will, conference, do so again. Because while reform is only interested in destruction and division, Labour governments are always about building things and making people's lives better. That is the very essence of the Labour Party, to think about the future and to give people hope. And as we do so, from time to time, we should just look back at those achievements of 1945 and 1964 and 1997, and those we have started now. Why? Because they give us courage to go on and do more. So, conference, be of good heart and be of good cheer, because believe you me, in the years to come, people will too say of this government that we changed the country for the better, so that a brighter future might be bequeathed to those who will come after us. Conference, thank you.
Thank you so much, Hilary. Really appreciate that promising report that we've had, especially about the future of what's happening in Northern Ireland. So we now move on to continuing our growth debates. And to start us off, I'll let you catch your breath. To start us off, please welcome to the lectern Heidi Alexander, the Secretary of State for Transport.
Conference, it's an enormous privilege to stand before you today as Transport Secretary in our Labour government. This time 3 years ago, I stood on this stage as Labour's newly selected parliamentary candidate in Swindon South. I went from candidate to Secretary of State in the space of 18 months. Not a journey I ever dreamed I would make, but one which fills me with pride and determination every day. Conference, journeys matter. Some might say that transport is just about getting from A to B. But we know it's about so much more. It's about opportunity. It's about dignity. It's not just about timetables and infrastructure. It's about young people being able to get their first Saturday job. It's about whether a parent can get home to read their child a bedtime story. It's about a pensioner getting to see their friend. And transport has one simple truth. When it fails, life is harder. Opportunities become narrower. Communities more isolated. The brutal reality of the last decade has been a transport system in decline. A decade where bus services were cut and rail services delayed. New infrastructure promised, but shamefully never funded. Tory neglect, seen most graphically in our broken, potholed roads. Conference, never again can we entrust our transport system to the charlatans of the right. Conference, the choice before the country is simple. Renewal with Labour or decline with reform. It starts by us putting our money where our mouth is. Thanks to our Labour Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, we are making the biggest ever investment in local transport in England's city regions. So working with our brilliant Labour mayors, we will expand the Tyne and Wear Metro to Washington, extend the tram to East Birmingham, and bring a rapid transit system to Liverpool. We will build new stations at Portishead and Pill in the West Country, reopen Haxby Station on the outskirts of York, and improve rail, road and bus connections in the East Midlands. We'll fund zero-emission buses in Greater Manchester, a new fleet of trams for South Yorkshire, a new Piccadilly and Elizabeth line trains for London. And Tracy, we will end the scandal of Leeds being the largest city in Europe without a metro, and we will build mass transit for West Yorkshire. Conference, it's not just enough to improve transport within our great cities. We need to link them up better too. So let me be absolutely clear. This government is fully committed to Northern Powerhouse Rail. But what we won't do, Conference, is repeat the mistakes of the past, where governments made promises with no plan to deliver them. New infrastructure will be the physical embodiment of our ambition. But we need to get the basics right too. Let's be honest, catching the bus can be an ordeal. Ticket options that don't make sense, timetables that bear no relation to reality. Our landmark bus services bill, piloted through Parliament by my good friend Simon Lightwood, puts an end to this. Ending the Tories' failed deregulation experiment, transferring power from private operators to local leaders. Be in no doubt, Conference, better buses are on their way. Conference, it's not just our buses which need fixing. For too long, our railways have been run in the interests of private profit, not passengers. The Tories stood by and watched as delays, cancellations and overcrowding became the norm, as did the soaring profits of owning groups. Conference, I have one thing to say to you all: not on my watch. This Labour government is calling time on 30 years of failure, frustration and fragmentation. We are returning our railways to the service of passengers, and we're not wasting a minute. In the first 12 months of this government, we passed our landmark Public Ownership Act, took South Western and C2C into public hands, with Greater Anglia to follow in just 2 weeks' time. In February, West Midlands Trains will be next, with Thameslink, Chiltern and Great Western to follow. At that point, more than half of the rail network will be publicly owned. And under the leadership of our Rail Minister, Peter Hendy, we will steer our Railways Bill through Parliament, setting up Great British Railways to unite the management of track and train. No more Sundays wondering whether the train is going to turn up. No more baffling arrays of ticket types and prices. A public service where reliability is the watchword and pride is restored. We said we would do it in our manifesto, and Conference, we are delivering. Conference, this is personal. This is personal for me. I worked for 4 years with the men and women of London Underground. We fought COVID together, and we brought in the Elizabeth line. I grew up in the proud railway town of Swindon, where my dad began his career as an electrical apprentice for British Rail. The railways aren't just part of my story. They're the story of my town and many more like it. In Swindon, the famous GWR maintenance works arrived in the 1840s, changing the town forever. Today, buildings that were once locomotive sheds are now home to retail, film and digital businesses. Once again, our railways must be the catalyst of regeneration and the engine of progress. Stations that become the beating heart of town centres, new homes and workplaces built on old depot land and poorly used car parks, local leaders in the driving seat, unlocking the potential of our railways way beyond the tracks. Conference, Great British Railways is coming soon, and it will be run by the people, for the people. Conference, if our buses and trains are the arteries of our economy, our roads are its backbone. This Labour government knows that poorly maintained roads not only risk lives, but also cost families and businesses hundreds of pounds in costly garage trips. That's why we're ending the pothole plague. We're handing councils the cash and certainty they need to mend our broken roads. And let me be clear, under this government, there is no such thing as a war on the motorist. Never has been, never will be. I drive, but guess what? I walk and I cycle too. And so does our brilliant local transport minister, Lillian Greenwood. We both take buses, we both take trains, trams and taxis too. So let's dispense with the imaginary problems that are conjured up by conspiracists and cranks, and let's focus on solving the real-world problems instead. Conference, our transport system, of course, extends beyond our shores too, enabling international trade, tourism, visits to friends and extended family. Our ports and airports, therefore, are every bit as vital as our stations and roads. It's a fact that more people want to fly to and from the UK than ever before. And air travel isn't just for Nigel Farage to go to America or Richard Tice to spend his weekends in Dubai. It's for everyone. Families deserve their hard-earned summer holiday, and neither I nor our new aviation minister, Keir Mather, will ever say otherwise. And though we might have more meetings online than we once did, UK businesses still need a thriving aviation sector to trade. That's why we've acted quickly and decisively. We've approved expansion plans at City Airport, Luton, and just last week at Gatwick. We're supporting Labour Mayor Oliver Coppard and the Labour leaders of South Yorkshire to reopen Doncaster Sheffield Airport. And we've invited proposals for a third runway at Heathrow. For too long, this country has been held back by a planning system which has strangled growth. That ends now. We won't duck the difficult decisions because we know that if you do, you give up on the thousands of good quality jobs our country so desperately needs. Now, conference, what I'm talking to you about today doesn't happen by magic. So to the people who keep our country moving every day, I say thank you. The cleaning staff working overnight to keep our transport hubs clean. The engineers out in the rain, keeping the tracks safe. The drivers carrying millions of all of us every year. Thank you on behalf of the families you support and the communities you serve. And conference, let me say this. Change won't happen without us having the courage to face up to some difficult decisions. The path of renewal will not be easy, but under the leadership of Keir Starmer, we are turning our transport system around. Imagine buses you can rely on. Imagine roads safe for all. Imagine trains that serve the public. It may sound ambitious, conference, but it's easy if you try. So let's never stop trying. Let's build the transport system Britain deserves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Can I just, before we go on, if people want a conversation, by all means, not going to try and stop you, but can you do it outside of the hall, please, because it's quite distracting. And it's really important we hear these fantastic policies that are coming out from our party. Thank you very much. We now move on to debates on Composite Motion 2, cleaning up our communities fly tipping, which will be moved by South Norfolk CLP and seconded by St Albans CLP. Could I ask the mover and seconder to come down to the Speaker's desk, please? Thanks very much. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name's Deborah Sachs from South Norfolk, and I'm a strange person called a waste planner. And waste is an absolutely fundamental issue to all of us who are councillors, and it's also a very socialist issue, and I'm going to explain why. It affects everybody. A clean environment is something everybody deserves, and it's also in the process of transferring money from the private sector to the public sector. Those of us who are councillors may have heard of something called EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. I'm going to get slightly nerdy here. But what that's about is transferring the costs of managing all that packaging waste and cleaning up our environment from the public sector, from council taxpayers, from the public sector to the private sector. And those are the people that are incurring bringing those costs onto us. So this is a fantastic move at the moment. And I urge all of you who are receiving that money, some of it a bit more than we thought, which is delightful, to spend it on cleaning up our environment. We also need to show that Labour is the party of law and order. The waste industry is one of the few industries that is begging for more regulation and enforcement against the criminals that operate in that sector. People who fly tip, they dump rubbish where it shouldn't belong in our rivers, in our fields, who export it illegally to countries where it's not managed properly, who describe it as one thing when it's in fact another, hazardous waste described as inert soils. These are really fundamental issues, and those of us involved in delivering public services are more aware of that perhaps than ever. So I'd just like to move this motion and explain to people the importance of waste management and the importance of addressing fly tipping. There's some really good best practice which perhaps some people can learn from perhaps a county like Hertfordshire, where they put cameras up to in places where fly tipping happens, put up posters with little eyes on, which apparently puts people off. Some people have actually painted on the ground the amount that it has cost to remove a fly tip and the amount and the money that could have been spent on a teaching assistant or a new planning officer or filling the potholes. So there's a lot of good practice in waste management. I urge you to all pick it up. And address this issue and make sure that our environment is clean for everybody. I'd like to move that motion, please.
Thank you very much. The seconder?
Good morning, Conference. I am Mason, a first-time speaker from St Albans. I rise to second the motion on cleaning up our communities. The Conservatives' appalling record on waste criminals left our roads and high streets tattered. I've seen this in St Albans, and I know our neighbours in Watford, Hemel and other areas feel the same. And whilst the Tories let criminals off the hook, Reform wouldn't even know where to start. They've got absolutely no plan and no vision for our high streets. This motion welcomes the government's crackdown on fly tipping, and it urges the government to go further by imposing harsher prison sentences on those who perpetrate these offences, and to identify these criminals, we should be using high-tech drones and CCTV. No stone should be left unturned in our pursuit to go after these people who blight our communities. This motion gives the government our full confidence, so these fly tippers have absolutely nowhere to hide. So please, Conference, back this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now call for speakers from the floor, and I'll take people in rounds of 3. Okay. I think you were the first, but your hand's up in the yellow. Is it yellow, green? I can't really see from here, apologies. Green or yellow, thank you. Person there, is that a brown or yellow hand jumper? Yes, yes, thank you. And we'll take the person there in the red. It's a gorgeous green. Sorry I called it yellow.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Conference. Jacqueline Burnett-Pitts, GMB, speaking in support of the NPF debate on kickstarting economic growth. Labour has inherited the most unequal society in a generation to the bad political choices made under the Tories. I see its consequences every day. I work as a housing advice and prevention manager, manage a team who take care of homeless families and single people. Budget cuts have had a devastating impact on our residents. Soaring prices for emergency and temporary accommodation is actually crippling local authorities. So Labour's plan to kickstart economical growth cannot be separated from the need to rebuild our public services. Labour's promise to build 1.5 million homes in this Parliament is the right one. But there are 1.4 million fewer English households in social housing than there were in 1980. Working people must be able to afford to live in these houses when they are built, so Labour's commitment to the biggest increase in social and affordable housing in a generation cannot come soon enough. It must include delivering the council homes we need, and it should be aligned with Labour's industrial strategy to support our building materials sector, boost the economy and create much-needed jobs. Conference, please support. Thank you.
Conference. My name is Seb Lovell-Huckle. I'm a first-time delegate for Birmingham Northfield and first-time speaker. But I'm also a community activist and candidate for the area I live in for next year's local elections, Allens Cross in Birmingham. I'm going to speak to the NPF report on growth, focusing on transport, so it's fitting to have Heidi here to confirm that better buses are on their way. Conference, buses are not only the lifeblood for communities like Allens Cross, they are essential to strong economic growth. For too long, National Express has let down local people. The 61 bus is an essential service that links my community, where a third of households don't have a car, with Northfield and Birmingham city centre, to hospitals, schools and work. The National Express decision to cut the 61 from Allens Cross is a disgrace. But Conference, thanks to West Midlands Labour Mayor Richard Parker and this Labour government, we are bringing buses back into public control. For residents in Allens Cross, this will mean better connectivity and better opportunities, renewing access to work, to school, or to that hospital appointment. Thank you.
Delegate, next speaker.
Good morning, Conference. I am Ros Cloak from Welwyn Hatfield CLP, first-time delegate and first-time speaker. This morning, I am speaking to you in support of Composite Motion 2, Cleaning Up Our Streets, Fly Tipping. Conference, I have lost count of the number of residents who have told me on the doorstep how much their lives are negatively impacted by fly tipping. In Welwyn and Hatfield, this is an issue that is felt most acutely in communities with unadopted roads. Despite the hard work and lobbying of our local borough councillors, Beth Kelly, our newly elected county councillor, and our excellent MP, Andrew Lewin, it is proving difficult to get action to clean up our streets, as both the developers who built the houses and communities years ago and the Lib Dem-run county council refuse to take responsibility. Conference, there is no more striking image of the mess the Tories left behind than the literal piles of rubbish that have been left on our streets. And, unfortunately, in certain circumstances, I'm afraid to say the rats that have moved in. Please, please support this motion and support the government and the work they have done to start cleaning up the mess the Tories left of our streets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate. Okay, we'll take the next three. If you can show your hands, please. Person there? Yes. Thank you. Green jacket. And the person in the front row. No, sorry, not you. Sit down. That front row, yep, you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Delegate. Yep. And you've 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, Conference. Boyd Stephen from Labour International, first-time speaker and delegate, speaking in favour of Composite Motion 2. Conference, many speakers before me, from delegates to our Prime Minister, have correctly identified Labour as the party of aspiration, and I'm proud that we've done that. But from my experience of living in different places, you only unlock this aspiration when you have an uplifting community and a place where people feel empowered to do well. Environment Matters Conference. And for that reason, it infuriates me that the government's doing so much hard work to uplift communities across the country, and we have these waste cowboys fly tipping, ruining communities, and making it so much, and making the government's work so much harder. It's frankly disgraceful, in my opinion. And for that reason, Conference, for the sake of both the beauty of our communities, for the sake of our economic future, because growth won't get going unless people's aspiration is unlocked, and of course for people's lives, since this empowers people and empowers people so much and improves people's lives to such a degree, please support Composite Motion 2 and let's crack down on fly tipping and stop these waste cowboys once and for all. Thank you very much, Conference.
Thank you, Delegate. Next speaker.
Good morning, Conference. I am Councillor Rebecca Everett, Deputy Leader of Erewash Borough Council, which we took control of in 2023 after 20 years in opposition. Like our Labour government found in 2024, we inherited a complete mess. For 2 decades, the Tories inflicted grave austerity whilst also leaving us nearly bankrupt. Tories were spending £1 million a year on Britain in Bloom. Meanwhile, they scrapped 4 of our 6 street cleaners and reduced our number of neighbourhood wardens by 3/4. Like our government has been doing for this past year, we made tough choices and brought some much-needed financial responsibility. We saved Erewash from bankruptcy, and now, like this government, we're turning back the clock on austerity. Our neighbourhood wardens, who race around Erewash every single day dealing with graffiti and fly tipping, do brilliant work that hardly anyone can see. While the Tories slashed their numbers and messed with their routines, we've listened to their suggestions on how they can work better, and we're hiring more of them. This investment in Erewash pairs wonderfully with new powers announced by this government: higher fines and tougher penalties for fly tippers, a welcome deterrent against these criminals. So whether you're dumping waste at Forbes Hole in Long Eaton, on country lanes in Breaston, or leaving mattresses on Pelham Avenue in Ilkeston, watch out, we're coming for you. I'm grateful that this government has our back. It's time to clean up Britain's streets. And if you support our mission to turn back the visual stain of years of Tory misrule and austerity, if you support reviving our town centres, and if you support making criminals pay and bringing back people's pride in their communities, I urge you to back this motion.
Thank you, Delegate. Next speaker. Remind everyone to try and keep it down. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shola Ajibade. I'm CLP from Maidenhead, and this is my first time speaking, and I'm the first time delegate as well. Conference, fly tipping is not only an eyesore. It drains council's budgets, damages our environment, and undermines our pride in our communities. The Conservative failed to act, allowing incidents to soar in our communities, while Reform UK also offer no plan to act at all. So, with all the problems still soaring, with this motion, Labour is showing that we will clean up Britain, restore accountabilities, and protect the spaces we all share. So I urge us all to support this motion. Let's send a message to clean and restore the cleanliness in our community, and signal that Labour will deliver cleaner, safer and stronger communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate. Another round of three. The grey suit jacket. Black top, there, yeah. And go on then, brown top, come on then. You were waving very vociferously.
Thank you, Conference. Councillor Tom Plater, Stevenage, CLP, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Conference, we're having a bit of an A1 party up here this morning with St Albans, Welwyn and now Stevenage. Because fly tipping is more than a mess. It's a mark of neglect. And under the Conservatives, it exploded. It went up 60% over their watch. Waste disposal costs have soared, and while repeat offenders dump with impunity, our communities are left to clean up the consequences. The Tories didn't clean up the country, and now we must. Because councils aren't legally required to investigate or prosecute fly tipping. It's discretionary, and some choose to look the other way. That's not enforcement, it's abandonment. And the proposer to this motion was absolutely right, because in Stevenage we deploy mobile CCTV units across fly tipping hotspots to catch those who want to bring down our local areas. And I welcome our government's plans to crush the vans, deploy drones and make rogue waste operators face up to 5 years in prison. Because we take pride in our public spaces and pride in our community. So by passing this motion, we're not just cleaning up our streets, we're cleaning up 14 years of Tory excuses. Conference, pass this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate. Next speaker.
Hello, Conference. My name is Councillor Polly Newstub. I first came to Labour Conference 30 years ago, but I am a first-time speaker, so it's amazing to be here. I wasn't expecting to speak on this topic, but so I don't have a very prepared speech. I wanted to talk to you about work we've been doing in Ealing, where fly tipping costs us £3 million a year. Now, we know that we could, I don't know, that's 4,000 weeks of support for one of our vulnerable residents in a daycare centre. 200 CCTV cameras to fight crime, and it could even fix 32,000 potholes in our borough, but instead we have to pick up the filth that people leave behind. And it is so much more than just an administrative environmental problem for our residents. It's an absolute symbol of decline and leans into making our communities feel unsafe, unloved and left behind. And that is how reform gets into our communities, exploiting the very things that they would never do anything about. So in Ealing, we've been... Thank you. In Ealing, we've been running a brilliant campaign. I want to shout out to Councillor Paul Driscoll, who's not here, who's been leading a campaign talking about Ealing being our home, not a tip. And it feels a really fundamental way to make that connection with how we want to live and how we want to feel empowered to live safely in our communities and not feel that we're blighted by this filth. So we've been creating many little crime scenes around areas that we know are hotspots for fly tipping. And you know what? It really, really works. It sends that message that, as well as the little eyes that someone else talked about, that people are watching and people are taking note. And alongside that, we've increased fines from, I think, 400 to 1,000. And I'm delighted to say that Ealing is now giving out more fines than any other borough in London. So it works. We can fight this. We can send that message that this is an unacceptable way for people to live in our communities, for people to exploit our communities, and we can make our places more beautiful and brilliant places to work. I also want to make a final shout out to an amazing organisation called Lagercan, who volunteer day in, day out. We have a kind of army of amazing people who go out and do this work and support us, and we couldn't do what we do without them. So thank you. Remember, our homes, our areas are our homes that we have pride in, and a Labour government is going to help us support our communities to bring back that pride, because this is our home, not a tip. Thank you, conference.
Thank you, Delegate. Thank you. Yes, next speaker.
Good morning, conference. I like this motion, and I have hundreds of reasons to support this motion. Sorry, I forgot to tell. My name is Nabila Ali. I'm from Newcastle Central West. First-time councillor, first-time speaker. That's why. Thank you. As I said, I have hundreds of reasons to support this motion, but one thing I think is the main reason when I door knock and I ask people why you don't allow your children to play in the street, they say streets are not clean. If we are going to support this motion, we might get our children off the gadgets and we might give them an opportunity to play in the street. We have lost this culture, we might get that culture back. And it's good for physical health for our children and mental health. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll have one last round. I'm trying to pick from where I haven't picked before. Okay, you can come forward. Yeah. Yeah, in the red. And is that a red or an orange jumper at the front? Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, conference. My name is Kamalpreet Kaur, second-time delegate and second-time speaker from Hayes and Harlington. Thank you. My day begins with WhatsApp messages. They say, "Hello, councillor," but instead of smileys or flowers, I get pictures of fly tips, mattresses, black bins, and everything. And today, a teacher who walks within my ward to a school nearby, she sent me a video saying it's pain to walk these streets. It isn't just about the mess, it's about dignity, it's about pride, and it's about whether people believe that their council or the government care about them because they feel abandoned. Of course they would feel abandoned. There's been a Tory neglect for 14 years, and Labour is stepping up to clean. While Tory cuts slash the frontline services, leaving only a handful of enforcement officers, Labour is committing to investing in enforcement, restoring pride, and renewing our communities. And let's not forget reform. A party with a name that's an anomaly in itself, because there's nothing reforming about it. I think we should call it deform rather than reform. Because all they do is twist the truth, corrode trust, and divide our country. People do not want deformity. They want renewal, they want dignity, they want lovely places and the places they can call home and feel proud in. So let's clean up the communities, let's support the renewal project of the government and support Composite 1. Let's bring all the candidates in May 2026, wherever they are, so that Britain can renew all over again. Thank you.
Delegate. Next speaker.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Conference. My name is Sumit Kaul. I'm from Oxford East CLP. First-time speaker, first-time delegate. And I'm also a very proud member of Unite, which organises the BMW Cowley Mini Factory, which, as anyone who knows our great city knows, is the heart and soul of Oxford. Oxford is a city of proud working-class people who live in proud working-class communities. It is also one of Britain's most unequal cities. These people live in neighbourhoods like Barton, Blackbird, Lees and Rose Hill. They have lived in these neighbourhoods for generations. They have brought up children who continue to live in these neighbourhoods and will for generations. For 14 years, these people were told if they called the phone line, if they used the app, if they used the website, that fly tipping would be picked up. For 14 years, they did all these things and nothing happened. This is a debate about trust. Our brilliant local Labour councillors walked those streets for 14 years and they saw the trust dim. They saw the fires of community go out in people's eyes. They saw communities slighted and streets blighted by fly tipping. The resentment, the breakdown in trust, the belief that better days were behind these communities, these are things that Reform preys on every single day and will continue to do next year in our elections. Let's put meat on the bones of our policies. Let's make sure that when people deal with this fly tipping, that it is picked up and that the cowboys who take advantage of our communities are punished. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate.
Good morning, Conference. My name is Rachel Bergin. I'm the delegate from North Bedfordshire CLP. This is my first time speaking at this conference, so I've actually lost count of the number of times I've been a delegate. And I want to associate myself with the motion on fly tipping, but I wanted to draw the attention of Conference to another scourge in our communities. I recently stood in a council by-election in the beautiful Bedfordshire town of Stopfold, where I was incredibly grateful to get support from colleagues along the A1 corridor. Halfway through the campaign, overnight, graffiti appeared on the mini roundabouts in the shape of an England flag. We had people on the doorstep in Stopfold telling us that they were frightened and intimidated by this. These were people who were happy to fly the England flag to support the Red Roses or the Lionesses, or in remembrance of our fallen heroes, but who felt that this graffiti represented something altogether more sinister. And Conference, I understood. My granny lived in loyalist West Londonderry during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and when I visited her, she lived in a house with no inside toilet or bathroom or central heating because it was slum housing that hadn't been replaced because of the Troubles, because politicians were too busy fighting sectarian battles and not improving lives for people. If you visit George's Street today, it is still hasn't been replaced by council housing. And if you will see that half of the houses are boarded up and that curbstones are painted red, white and blue like they are in many Protestant communities across the province. And they're not painted red, white and blue out of any sense of patriotism or any sense of love for their country or our country. They're painted red, white and blue to tell Catholics to stay out. And that's what I felt and what people felt in Stopfold, that this was about telling people that they don't belong. And I think as a Labour Party, we need to speak out against this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just for information, the votes on that will be taken at the end of this morning's session. And I'd also like to congratulate all the CLP and affiliates that have sent first-time delegates. There seems to be an awful lot of first-time speakers in that debate, so congratulations to all of you. I know how difficult it is to get up and speak, so well done. And we now move on to the Metro Mayor report, and I'd like to welcome Tracy Brabin, our Mayor of West Yorkshire, to the stage.
Hey folks, thank you, conference. I am thrilled to be speaking to you today as the Labour Mayor of West Yorkshire and Chair of UK Mayors. Now, I know there's been a lot of chatter in the fringes this week about mayors, about the future of our party, about leadership and about ambition. And whilst I can't speak for others, I'm happy to confirm, standing in front of you today, that I will be seeking to lead the Labour Party in the next mayoral election in West Yorkshire in 2028. Last time I addressed you at conference, it was 2021. I'd just been elected as a Metro Mayor for the very first time. Gosh, things were so different, weren't they? A Tory government that parted while the rest of us self-isolated, that levelled down communities instead of up, that delivered a budget that lasted 48 hours but left mortgages soaring for months, that cancelled HS2 without even talking to northern leaders, that left schools literally crumbling, rivers full of sewage and families paying the highest taxes in 70 years, that put Matt Hancock in the cabinet and then in the jungle, that tried to lay out an economic direction but instead gave the CBI directions to Peppa Pig World. And let us not forget, they gave us a Prime Minister who couldn't outlast a lettuce, leaving behind 14 years of chaos, 14 years of crisis, and a country desperate for change. Now, we know that rebuilding this country will take time. But, conference, we've already made incredible progress. 2,000 more GPs, 5 million more NHS appointments, free school breakfast clubs, new landmark trade deals, the creation of Great British Energy, Great British Rail, the largest expansion of employment rights in a generation, and a hard-fought-for Hillsborough Law. Conference, change is happening, but we must make sure that everyone can feel the benefits of that change. Now, there are those who will seek to use that feeling of hopelessness to divide us. The playbook has already been written. Across the pond, they said migrants were eating dogs. Nigel Farage is now telling us migrants are eating swans. What's next, goldfish? Conference, is your nan's budgerigar really safe? Is your niece's hamster, will she make it? I know, honestly, it's laughable, but it's also extremely dangerous, because this is the same playbook. Dress up lies as truth, stir up fear, divide communities, make the poorest blame each other while millionaires like Farage are jet-setting around the world. Now, we might not like the playbook, but it works. And that's why we can laugh at all the nonsense, but we can never ignore it. Conference reform is a wrecking ball that will destroy our communities, suggesting that people who've built a home for themselves in our country, our friends and our neighbours, often working in care or in our National Health Service, like those who cared for my mum in her final days, hardworking, tender and caring, should suddenly now leave. We have to fight back. Make no mistake, Conference, a swathe of reform councillors and councils would be catastrophic for this country, for communities and for our ability to get things done. Because Labour mayors are delivering on our plans to tackle the climate emergency, to build better transport, to attract international investment, to improve skills and education, and to make our streets safer. A win by reform would be a screeching handbrake turn on those plans for a better Britain. Only Labour has a plan for growth in every region and in every community. And we will do it by empowering local leaders with skin in the game. And that's why our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, invited mayors to Downing Street in his very first week in office to deliver a devolution revolution. The English Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill is one of the biggest changes to our democracy in a quarter of a century, where we can finally say, maybe, just maybe, Whitehall doesn't have all the answers. Conference. At a time when some of our opponents seek to spread hopelessness, fear, and confusion, devolution can be the antidote, empowering communities with the offer of a future that is better than the past. Now, Conference, when I last spoke to you, I was the only female Metro Mayor in the country. And I'm delighted that since then, I've been joined by the brilliant Kim McGuinness, Claire Ward, and Helen Godwin. All working together with Andy, Steve, Sadiq, David, Oliver, and Richard, all of us working flat out to deliver on our promises, creating those good new quality jobs and apprenticeships, building more affordable homes, revolutionising our transport networks, putting more money into people's pockets, and creating those communities where people really want to live. Conference. I'm a free school meals kid who grew up on a council estate in Batley. I survived sexual violence, marched on Greenham Common, and organised for striking miners. I worked for decades on zero-hour contracts, slept on floors when I couldn't find somewhere else to live. I raised my 2 girls while juggling a precarious job. Delivering this change is personal to me. Being a Labour mayor for my hometown is personal to me. And I see it as my personal mission to offer hope and opportunity for those that live in the same communities where I grew up. In West Yorkshire, we're investing millions in sport and the creative industries, with training for young people to get a leg up in stage and screen, better access to grassroots sport, and a young poet laureate scheme to inspire the next generation, all proving you don't have to leave to achieve. And I am so grateful to the Secretary of State for Culture, Lisa Nandy, for her personal support for the creative sector, and especially One Creative North, a joint project that brings together all the Northern mayors, the Arts Council, BBC, Channel 4, ITV, our universities, all working together to power up the North. Because that's what growth in every part of the country looks like. Backing and investing in growing sectors that have the potential to transform our local economies. But to grow our region, we need better transport. And this Labour government gets it. You heard earlier from Heidi about how transformative investment in local transport will be. £2.1 billion for my region, acting as a magnet for inward investment with trams connecting Leeds, Bradford, and all of the communities in between. And Conference, you'll already know about Labour mayors leading on plans to improve our bus services across the country with new integrated transport models, working with government to keep fares low. In West Yorkshire, our buses, trams, trains, and electric bikes will be brought under our new brand, the Weaver Network. Stitching together, let's hear it for the Weaver Network, everyone. There's some people from West Yorkshire over there. We love you. Stitching together those diverse communities in our region and learning the lessons from Andy's B Network. We are building a record of delivery, of promises made and promises kept. That's going to help us win in every city, town, and village. But Conference, we have to get out there. We have to tell people change is happening. We have to be the optimists, show them what the real Britain looks like. Kind, fair, generous, and brimming with opportunity, just as we always have together. As the rugby legend and West Yorkshire hero Rob Burrows said, "In a world full of adversity, we must still dare to dream." Thank you, Conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Tracy. And now, if you bear with us, we're going to have a slight changeover. The chair is going to be taken over by Joanne Thomas.
Thanks, Maggie. We are now moving to the NHS and our health service, but before we hear from Wes Streeton, we will take delegate contributions from the floor. First, we'll move our motions. The first motion is Composite 13, Staffing Adult Social Care, moved by Unison and seconded by GMB. Could delegates please register at the Speaker's desk, please? The next motion is Composite 11, Subsidiary Companies and Insourcing. It will be moved by Unison and seconded by GMB. Could delegates please register at the Speaker's desk, please? Finally, we will have Composite 4, NHS Dentistry. It will be moved by Crewe and Natwich CLP and seconded by Bury St Edmunds CLP. Could delegates please register at the Speaker's desk? As soon as the first mover is ready to come up, if you want to take your position, please, and if I can just remind you, it is 3 minutes. Thanks, Unison.
Conference, Pam Cyan moving this motion on behalf of Unison. Friends, when we talk about care in this country, we talk about the soul of our nation. We are talking about who we are and who we aspire to be. Let us how we treat the elderly neighbour who has no one else, how we treat the child born with disabilities, how we treat the stranger who falls sick tomorrow and needs someone to be there. And for decades, it's been care workers, British and migrant, shoulder to shoulder, who have held up that promise. They are the ones who lift our patients from their beds, who sit through the night with families in their darkest hour, who carry compassion and humanity into the system, often starved of both. They do this work not because it is easy, not because it is well paid, but because it is essential, because without them, our society does not work. Conference, today we face a crisis in social care, not because of those workers, but because of years of underfunding, fragmentation and undervaluing of their contribution. That is why steps taken by our Labour government matter. The first cross-party roundtable in the Independent Commission of Social Care, a commitment to build a national care service, and the creation of adult social negotiating body, a fair pay agreement that can truly be a game changer for the sector. This is progress and shows what can happen when we choose hope over division and when the government listens to those on the front line. But Conference, we must go further. Vacancies in adult social care have risen to 131,000. Recruitment is collapsing, retention is collapsing. We cannot build a national care service unless we value those and protect the people who make it possible. It means recognising the role of migrant workers who have kept the vital services running. It means rejecting scapegoating, and it means ensuring that migration rules do not make the bad situation worse. We cannot afford to drive away the very people who hold the system together. Conference, there is a different way. We can choose to say, if you leave your family to care for ours, this country will care for you. If you bring your labour, your love, your life into our communities, you will not live in fear. In Labour's Britain, the route to settlement will be fair, humane and just. And we can choose to say the care workers, all care workers, deserve dignity, they deserve security, and they deserve the power to stand up to bad employers without looking over their shoulders. Because this is not just about social care. This is about what we stand for as people. It is about principle. It's about values. And it's about the kind of nation we want to be. Do we want to be a nation that tears down the very people who hold us together? Or do we want to be a nation that honours their work, rewards their compassion and lifts them up? I say it must be the latter. So, Conference, let's rise to the challenge. Let's say loudly and without apology, dignity in social care is not an optional, it's essential. Funding, respect and protection, not tomorrow but today. Britain is a nation that stands tall because it refuses to push down people who we all depend on. Let's stand for fairness, let's stand for dignity, and let's stand for social care. I move.
Chair, Conference, Joe Pitchford, GMB, seconding Composite 13 on staffing and adult social care. Conference, I want to share a story from one of our members who told me about a carer in their mum's care home who had left her own family in India to do this very demanding job on the same low pay as every other care worker. But now she is being told to leave. So when we talk about care visas and migrants, let's remember no worker is a problem. It's the broken care system after years of Tory austerity and privatisation that's the problem. We have a staffing vacancy black hole of more than 131,000 carers, and pay is still just pennies above the minimum wage. 2/3 of care workers have told GMB they cannot continue working until retirement because inadequate and vague guidance on staffing levels without ratios leaves overworked and underpaid carers suffering attacks, fatigue and physical injury. For the UK not to have legal, safe staffing levels in care is scandalous. It's a dereliction of duty to both care workers and our loved ones they care for. But for us to match the safe staffing levels in other countries, like Japan, we need more than 350,000 new care workers. This will never happen unless we provide central public funding to allow Labour's fair pay agreement in social care to raise care worker wages above poverty levels. Conference, stand with social care workers no matter where they come from. Support this composite. I second.
Morning, Chair. Conference, Linda Hobson, moving Composite Motion 11 on behalf of Unison. Conference, we all want the Make Work Pay agenda to be a success. In some areas, great progress is being made, but other parts need much more attention from the government. In particular, the biggest wave of insourcing in a generation. This is more than a slogan, more than an election promise. Bringing public services back in-house where they belong has wide appeal across the electorate. But Conference, what we cannot afford is services going the other way. Regrettably, outsourcing is still happening in many parts of our public services. In recent months, Unison has been involved in a series of campaigns against subsidiary companies in the NHS. a subject very close to the members I work alongside and represent back at home. Subcos are a vehicle for the NHS Trust to exploit a VAT loophole and to cut back on staff pay and terms and conditions. In March this year, NHS England began a new push for subcos. Desperate trusts once again expected to set them up, push staff into them, predominantly low-paid women and black workers. But conference, there is power in our union. The response from health workers has been phenomenal. Campaigns fought in various parts of England. So, conference, I want to pay particular tribute to members of my union in Dorset who stood up to the managers of their trusts last Wednesday when they voted a massive 94% in favour of strike action. A clear rejection of this policy. In conference, it is good to report that we have made ministers listen, because this government has responded. On Friday, at the prompting of the Health Secretary, NHS England wrote to NHS Trust stating that all subco plans must be put on hold and they can only go ahead in the future if there is staff approval. Of course, Unison will not stop criticising subco plans and we will continue to campaign against them in the future, but this is an important change from government, one that recognises the views of Unison and other unions and is one we can welcome. The challenge now for workers, for unions and for those who want to see our NHS remain public is to ensure that trusts follow the latest guidance and also put a stop to the more conventional privatisation. Conference, we are fully aware of the struggles in the NHS and understand the state of our public services were left by the Tories, but health workers will not accept outsourcing. The time has come for the government to come good on its promises and deliver that insourcing commitment. I move. Thank you.
Chair, Conference, Fazana Jummer, GMB, seconding this composite. This motion is about something that should not be happening anywhere, and especially not in our NHS, and that is a two-tier workforce. Labour has rightly promised to reinstate and strengthen the two-tier workforce code of not being treated less favourably, so that workers' pay, terms and conditions are protected if they are outsourced. But some employers are yet to get that message. AGH Solutions is one of those. They are wholly owned by Airedale Hospital NHS Trust, and their workers are GMB members, and these are the people that keep the hospital running. But AGH deny these porters, cleaners and caterers the terms and conditions of the NHS staff that they work alongside. And unfortunately, it's always the low-paid workers who get treated like this. It's unfair and exploitative. If you can run a hospital, you can afford to pay your staff fairly and equally. Outsourcing and two-tier systems are no way to run public services. It hurts morale, creates division within the workforce and tells hard-working people they do not matter. So from tomorrow, our GMB members at Airedale Hospital will be back on strike until they win equal treatment they are entitled to. I want to say thanks to our Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, for listening to our members and announcing he will limit NHS outsourcing in the future. There is always much more to be done. So let's finish the job and bring about the biggest wave of insourcing in a generation that our government has promised us. Conference, please support.
Good morning, Conference. My name is James Smith, and I'm a proud representative of Crewe and Nantwich CLP, and I'm privileged to move the motion on NHS dentistry. Conference, it is regretful that I have to report to you that NHS dentistry is broken and is not fit for purpose. It is a system that has suffered many years of willful neglect and has cuts and no longer works for patients and those who work in it. I am an NHS dentist, so I see the issues and I experience them every single day. And whoever thought that in 2025 it would be commonplace for people to remove their own teeth? Now, I think our message as a conference to the Tories, who are the architects of this intolerable situation, should be shame on you. The most common cause of a hospital admission for children is to have a tooth extraction under a general anaesthetic. Now, it's all too common in the surgery to see young children who have to have multiple teeth removed, and this just doesn't have an impact on the child there and then, but also missed school days, difficulty eating, and wider developmental issues. It's vital that we deliver on our manifesto pledge to introduce supervised toothbrushing in early years education, building on the pioneering work of experts like Professor Zoe Marshman from the University of Sheffield. Now, this will inevitably generate opposition from other parties, but we've got a moral mission to stand up to opposition wherever it comes from, because this is simply far too important to shy away from. Access to NHS dentistry has now become a representation of societal inequalities in Britain as a whole, with the poor being able to not afford care and the rich being able to get it whenever they need it. The party's pledge to deliver 700,000 new urgent care appointments is a start, but to close this gap, full NHS contract reform is essential. It is in our party's DNA to close disparities in society, and we cannot afford to fail. Because, conference, you know what the final nail in the coffin would be? A reform government. I don't know about you, conference, but I'm not willing to accept the status quo, and we as a Labour Party have a huge responsibility and duty to get NHS dentistry back on its feet and to make DIY dentistry a thing of the past and to end this Dickensian practice once and for all. Thank you, conference.
Good morning, conference. I, Callum Edwards of Bury St Edmunds CLP, proudly second this motion. Any dental professional will tell you oral health affects general health. General health being available at point of need has been a core value of our NHS, so I believe oral health should also be available at point of need. Thank you.
Okay, I will go in rounds of 3. If you could just indicate if you'd like to speak, please, and I'll look to get a variety of people. Oh. The lady in the middle holding up the white paper. Yeah. The lady with the disability steward. And right at the very back, in the mustard top, at the very back. I'll come round again. Thanks. At the very back, yeah.
Good morning, conference. I just want to say something quickly. Last night I had a problem with my eye. This morning I called up 111. I've got really good support. I use my NHS app to locate my medication, and I picked it up just now from the chemist. That's just an example of great NHS service. Thank you, Wes. So, conference, After 14 years of Conservative neglect, millions of people have been left in pain, unable to see a dentist when they need one. 13 million people in England have an unmet need for dentistry. That's 13 million. Parents ringing every practice in town, children living on painkillers, pensioners pulling out their own teeth. That is the reality of Tory Britain. And what did the Conservative offer? A so-called new patient premium. £88 million wasted on a gimmick that delivered nothing. Nothing. This is a party that left both patients and dental professionals betrayed. They let waiting lists spiral, they let dental care collapse, and they condemned millions of silent suffering. And what about reform? No plan for dentistry, no plan for our NHS. In fact, they want people to pay thousands more for healthcare. That's the choice they offer. Pay up or put up with the pain. Conference, only Labour can fix this crisis. Only Labour can be trusted to rebuild NHS dentistry and make it fit for the future. Conference, no one in Britain should be left pulling out their own teeth. No parent should have to choose between their child's pain and their bank balance. With Labour, we will restore NHS dentistry and put the smile back in Britain. So I urge you to support the motion. Thank you.
Can I ask all speakers to make sure you stick to the time, please, so I can get as many people in as possible?
Good morning, Conference. My name is Mary Aspinall. I'm a Cabinet Member in Plymouth for Health and Adult Social Care. When Labour took control of Plymouth City Council again in May 2023, we had a private Cabinet meeting and decided where we were going forward and what would be our priorities. We really considered lots of things. But the one thing close to my heart was we decided to set up a dental task force in Plymouth. At that time, we had over 22,000 people on the waiting list for an NHS dentist in Plymouth. And in fact, recently, the ICB has closed that down, so we don't know exactly how many people are waiting now. The task force included some people who worked within the profession. We've got a dental school in Plymouth, so we've made sure we invited them. And their social enterprise department was able to help with some of the care that was needed. We initially launched a scheme that any child in primary school could apply to go along. And unfortunately, it wasn't as well supported as we thought it would be. So, the dental task force had various people on it, and we met every couple of months to see how we could progress. Since that time, the dental school enterprise scheme has been able to work with us, and we are hoping in October to be able to open a training establishment for dentists. And there will be some people on the list will be dealt with, but particularly looked after children are going to be eligible for checks. We also, obviously, like everybody, have an emergency dental service. That is overrun, but fortunately, we've received some extra money so that we can expand that. The Labour plan is working, and we hope that we'll get sorted. But, Minister, Secretary of State, I would like to invite you to Plymouth so that you can come along to a supervised brushing scheme where I'm sure you'll be entertained by Bob the Badger. because the children just love this. It's a very repetitive song, but you keep it in your brain for a long time. Right, there we are, folks. You've all heard.
That's a really good plug, but you must wind up now.
Thank you. Can I just say, we must support this motion. We can't allow this to carry on. The dental contract needs looking at very seriously. And I hope, Minister Secretary of State, you'll be asking for people that are the users to come and help get that right.
Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Anne Leadham, North Hereford CLP, lifelong member of this party. Conference, let me tell you a story that will confirm Labour is making a difference. My husband had to endure a catheter for 4 years because he had an enlarged prostate and could not pee. So many visits to the A&E because the catheter was blocked, costing the NHS £500 every time. I sensed the men in the hall understand the indignity of the situation. We were told it would be years before he could have surgery. Then a miracle happened. Labour came to power. Within a month, he was seen by a wonderful consultant and operated on within 4 weeks. He has other medical conditions that are being treated on a regular basis. This is a story about giving someone back his dignity and the quality of life, and Labour did that. As a retired nurse, I could see the pressure the staff were under, always apologising about the lack of progress, frustrated because they could not care for their patients properly. It was not their fault, it was the Tories. Lack of investment, lack of support for the health service. We must shout it from the rooftops, on the streets, using social media. Labour is the only party that will improve the health of this nation. Reform want to privatise the NHS, and the Tories don't care. Remember Matt Hancock? Conference, be proud of our achievements in such a short time and celebrate that the health of the British people is safe in our hands. Thank you, Conference. Also, support the motion.
I'm going to go around again. If you would like to speak, blue jumper at the front, right at the very back in the middle, and over here on the right. Yep, man in the suit. Yeah. Can I just remind you to stick to the time, please, so we can get as many speakers as possible? It's very much appreciated.
Oops. Conference, Bridie McCreesh, United Union, speaking in support of Composite 11 and subsidiary companies. I work in a local authority in Northern Ireland, and we too are facing the threat of outsourcing, just like the hospital next door to us. At Conference, the drive to introduce subcos into the NHS and local authorities must stop. It is part of the same failed ideas that have driven our public services to crisis over this past decades. Cuts to services, pay a tax and disastrous outsourcing. Conference Labour has promised the biggest wave of insourcing in a generation. Yet more outsourcing through subsidiary companies risks the opposite. Subcos are privatisation by the back door. They hit the lowest paid, the hardest, they break up national paying conditions and do nothing for services, whatever hollow assistance they launch. We know this because we fought it. We fought and won insourcing of 1,800 Serco workers at Barts Hospital. We stood with colleagues at Together in Kent, who struck to win equality and directly employed workers. We brought housing repair workers back in-house in Stoke-on-Trent. We defeated subco plans at Firmly and many other trusts and councils, and we will do it again. In Northern Ireland this year, public sector workers took strike action to defend our servicing from underfunding and neglect. The announcement this week from the NHS in England of a change in the national guidance on subcos is welcome, but it's not enough. We don't want a pause, we want an end. We want existing subcos brought back in-house. Public service workers have had enough. Stop outsourcing. Support this composite. Thank you.
Peter Bond, London black cab driver, proud of it, and a Unite the Union delegate. A lack of accessible and affordable dental care is a global crisis, affecting 3.7 billion people worldwide, causing pain, discomfort and impacting overall health and quality of life. I'm a working class cab driver. I was born on a council estate, Peckwater Estate in Kentish Town. Who do I believe? ActionAid, Amnesty UK, Amnesty International, Yesh Din, B'Tselem, Francesca Albanese, UN Rapporteur, all call it genocide, occupation, apartheid in Palestine and the West Bank. I'm calling on Mr. Streeting to allow any Palestinian with any health issue to be allowed to flown over here at the cost of the UK government and treated. Umkhonto we Sizwe, the spear of the nation, was led by Nelson Mandela, Mandiba. He was called a terrorist by the British government and many others. He said on his release, "No one is free until all Palestinians are free." Free Palestine. Thank you very much.
Hello, Conference. I'm speaking in support of Composite 4. At 13 years old, I was playing hockey when I walked straight into somebody's backswing and I lost my front teeth. At the very age you start caring about your appearance, I was left with a smile full of gaps. And what made it worse, it was school picture day before I could actually get my teeth fixed. But here's my point. Because of the last Labour government, I was treated quickly on the NHS and I got my smile back. That gave me the confidence to laugh, to speak up and to be myself. Now imagine being that 13-year-old today, waiting in pain, embarrassed to open your mouth, scared to speak in case somebody points and laughs at you, parents unable to get an appointment at all. My good friend Jacob said to me, "When you can't smile, people never meet the real you. The confident, charismatic side of you always stays hidden, and you wonder why people are depressed, out of work, and afraid to speak up." He's right. Dentistry isn't just about teeth. It's about dignity. It's about opportunity. It's about mental health. Conference, a confident smile shouldn't be a privilege reserved for those who can afford it. Some of the most costly dental work in this country is only available to people with deep pockets or those happy to come back from holiday beaming with turkey teeth. Under reform, the risk is clear. The rich will keep their dazzling smiles while the rest of us are left hiding theirs. Under Labour, we must ensure that everyone, every child, every parent, every pensioner has access to the dental care that they need, not just those who can pay for it. Conference, let's send a clear message. Dentistry is not a luxury, it is a right. And friends, this motion, and with this motion, that right can be restored. Thank you.
Hiya Conference. I would like to announce that I live in Plymouth, and the dental school that Mary Aspinall went about, I was able to use. It took 3 weeks to have it, but for 3 weeks I had a really bad broken tooth. On a daily basis with that dental school, that Plymouth Council and Luke Pollard campaigns, my dentist closed down. It was one of the few NHS dentists left. Our campaign in Plymouth to increase NHS dentists is good. The message I left afterwards, the treatment there, I said, why not make it policy that for the first 2 or 3 years they become a dentist, a portion of them are given NHS dentistry. We continue in Plymouth to work this, and I must say it is fantastic service that that dentist school gives. They are dentists who will go there to be trained, and my tooth was a complication, took 45 minutes. So I like to say well done to the Plymouth Mary Aspinall and Plymouth Labour Party. We need more of these dental schools in this country so that other parts of the country can benefit by them.
Please indicate if you'd like to speak again. We have a look. The red hair, green jacket, you can see. At the back, pink shirt. Yeah. In the middle here. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Conference. For too long, NHS dentistry has been neglected, left broken by 14 years of Conservative failure. Across the country, patients are being forced to queue around the block, suffering in pain just for the chance to see a dentist. For far too many, there's no appointment available at all. This is not just unacceptable, it's a national scandal. Labour is already working hard to end this misery, with a plan to get 700,000 extra dental appointments rolled out nationwide, to get patients the care they desperately need. But prevention is vital too. That's why I'm backing this motion to expand the supervised toothbrushing scheme for up to 600,000 children in our most deprived areas, tackling tooth decay early and giving every child a healthier start. But most of all, I'm backing this motion because it will renegotiate the broken dental contract with a £20,000 golden hello to bring dentists back to the NHS, bring health equality back to the country. This Labour government is committed to getting NHS dentistry back on its feet and building a service that is fit for the future. Because good oral health isn't a privilege, it's a right. With this motion, it will be one again. Thank you.
Good morning, Conference. I'm Charlotte from Bury North, and I'm a first-time delegate and first-time speaker. Having worked in the care sector for over 15 years in both private and the charity sector, and having had experience of caring for loved ones, I'm speaking in favour on the motion for staffing in adult social care. I'm a proud member of GMB who are backing this motion, and I echo Joe's moving words about a broken care system. I wholly agree that privatisation has led to low pay and poor conditions. During COVID, we saw Turnover reached record highs. We saw over 100 legislation changes in as many days. We saw highly experienced and wonderful staff leaving the profession for entry-level positions with similar hourly rates. We saw previous governments call our workforce unskilled and low-skilled when we all know that they really meant underpaid and low-paid. For our unpaid carers, they are spending in excess of 35 hours a week, often neglecting their own emotional and physical health, whilst they are propping up our health and social care system and advocating for the safe and effective care and treatment for their loved ones. They deserve recognition for what they do. We all know that illness and disability does not discriminate. We have a beautifully diverse workforce, which is filled with caring and compassionate people from all walks of life. We need to ensure that our social care workforce remains diverse and representative of the wonderful communities that we support. This can only be achieved through fair pay and working conditions and retaining our brilliant workforce and recognising that carers and unpaid carers are vital to the success of our country and NHS. Conference, please support this motion and of all of our brilliant carers. Thank you.
Good morning, Conference. My name is Bala Briggs-Murray, and I'm representing the Hertsmere CLP. It's my first time at the Labour Party conference, first time delegate and first time speaker. I'm speaking in support of Composite Motion 13, Staffing and Adult Social Care. Adult social care is very close to my heart, very dear to my heart. I worked with Age UK Barnet, and I also worked as a social prescribing link worker with the GP Federation and London Borough of Barnet, and also volunteer with the local food banks. I missed the crucial role I held in each of these positions. There was a very high demanding service, and it was very vital while I was dealing with each of the elderly clients to be mindful, to actively listen, and show an extra layer of empathy, which they all appreciated. I most respectfully commend the Labour Party for their commitment and dedication to ensuring that adult social care and staffing is also being made priority. Thank you. Please, Conference, I humbly ask that you support this motion. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates, for such passionate contributions, and I'm sorry that we couldn't include more speakers because of the time. So, moving on, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to speak to yourselves our Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Wes Streeton.
Thank you. Thank you, Conference. Thank you, Conference. We stand on the shoulders of giants. What Bevan and Attlee did in the aftermath of war was an act of courage as well as conviction. Facing down their opponents in the Conservative establishment, they made a powerful choice founded on fairness, to create a national health service, to provide the people of our country with the care they need, not just the care they can afford. A promise that whoever you are, whatever your background, whatever your income, when you fall ill, you will never have to worry about the bill. I'm here today to defend that promise. And friends, we are in the fight of our lives. Not just for the NHS, or even for the survival of this government, but for everything we believe in. It is a battle of progressives against reactionaries, patriotism versus nationalism, hope, not hate. Our country is being confronted with choices about who we are and what we stand for. And nowhere do those choices come together more starkly than our National Health Service. The founding principles of the NHS are now contested for the first time in generations. Farage wants to replace the NHS with an insurance system. His vision for healthcare is a system that checks your pockets before your pulse and asks for your credit card before your care. Well, it might be all right for Mr. Moneybags. We know he can afford it. But what about those who can't? We should know by now that man is a con artist, posing as the voice of the people whilst working for the interests of the powerful. And be in no doubt, it's not reform he's offering, it's retreat. He says we can't afford in this century the National Health Service we could afford in the last. Well, if that's the fight Farage wants, I say bring it on. So today I'm not here simply to defend a service, but to uphold our values. A publicly funded, public service, free at the point of use, back on its feet and fit for the future. Those are Labour's values, those are Britain's values, and this is a fight we will win. But friends, we must win another fight too, one against the poison of post-truth politics. At Reform's conference, a discredited doctor claimed that the COVID vaccine gave our royal family cancer. And this man wasn't just some fringe figure, he's Reform's health advisor. Now, these anti-vax lies have consequences. They've led to the return of diseases we thought we'd defeated. Measles, whooping cough, children dying from preventable illness in this, the 21st century. When Farage was asked whether he'd side with medical scientists, he said, "I wouldn't side with anybody." Anti-science, anti-reason, anti-health. Nigel Farage is a snake oil salesman of British politics, and it's time to stop buying what he's selling. But it's not just the NHS he's coming for, it's the people who make the NHS. If you earn less than 60 grand a year and came from abroad, Farage wants you gone. The doctors, the porters, the nurses, the people who care for us in our hour of need and kept this country going when everything else stopped, tearing families apart, our friends, our neighbours. Last week, I received a letter from a consultant at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. He spent the last 3 decades here caring for children, but now tells me that Reform's health policy is making him consider leaving our country. He wrote, "Please use your office to ensure that those who've made their lives here in good faith can continue to care for patients without fear." Fear. So, as our country's Health and Social Care Secretary, let me address him and his colleagues directly. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Farage says go home. We say you are home. I've got your back. We've got your back. And at the next election, we'll send Farage packing. Thank you. I think they might have heard that at Great Ormond Street Hospital. But here's the challenge we've got. Farage is counting on us to fail. He wants to say, well, if a Labour government can't deliver on the NHS, then it's time to do away with Labour and the NHS. Well, I've got bad news for you, Nigel. Delivering on the NHS is what Labour governments do, and this Labour government is delivering the change we promised. We promised 2 million more appointments, we've delivered 5 million. We promised an extra 1,000 GPs, we've delivered 2,000. We promised to cut waiting lists and they're falling for the first time in 15 years. 6,500 more mental health workers, 7,000 more doctors, 13,000 more nurses and midwives. The cancer diagnosis standard met, GP satisfaction up, waiting times down. That is the difference a Labour government makes, and we're only just getting started. And if you want to see that difference, just look across England's borders. While we're investing in AI, robotic surgery, new digital devices and services, Scotland doesn't even have an NHS app. In Labour-led England, waiting lists are down. In Labour-led Wales, waiting lists are down. But in SNP Scotland, waiting lists are up after 18 years of nationalist failure. Shameful. So whether it's English nationalism with Reform, Scottish nationalism with the SNP, or Welsh nationalism with Plaid, we'll take them all on. With Anas in Scotland and Eluned in Wales, together we'll rebuild our NHS as a great British success story. But none of the progress we've made was inevitable. It's been hard-won in the face of cynicism and timidity. Every major change has been met by a chorus of caution. Slow down. Don't rush into it. It's all too difficult. Tomorrow, we're reforming general practice, so patients can request appointments online at any point during the day. Many GPs already offer this service because they've changed with the times. Why shouldn't booking a GP appointment be as easy as booking a delivery, a taxi or a takeaway? And our policy comes alongside £1 billion of extra funding for general practice and 2,000 extra GPs. Yet the BMA threatens to oppose it in 2025. Well, I give you this warning. If we give in to the forces of conservatism, they will turn the NHS into a museum of 20th century healthcare. We will always stand up for the interests of patients, and we won't back down. Now, it's true, we had a dire inheritance at the last general election, the worst since 1945. A broken economy, broken public services, and broken trust in politics itself. But we have an even more powerful inheritance in our party. Hope, optimism, courage. It's how the 1945 generation remade Britain after the war. And the test of our generation is to show that same courage, to prove that Britain is still capable of doing big things. Giving people hope again. We're not here to manage decline, and my ambition isn't just to recover the NHS, but to rebuild it, to meet the challenges of the 21st century. So let me tell you what our 10-year plan for health means. It means giving patients more power and more choice and more convenience, not just for the many, but not for the many, not just for the many, not just the privileged few. Got it then. It means putting the power of AI and data in the hands of NHS staff to bring our health service into the digital age. It means the NHS as a neighbourhood health service as much as a national health service, ending the 8 a.m. scramble with neighbourhood health centres open in the evenings and at weekends, offering face-to-face care to people, not just when they need it, but where they need it. It means early diagnosis and prevention. And modernisation isn't a betrayal of Bevan's legacy, it is its fulfilment. Because as the great man himself said, the NHS must always be changing, improving. And the truth is this: the next 10 years won't just bring a decade's worth of change in healthcare, it will bring centuries worth. Medicine is being transformed before our eyes. We now have genetic tests that can predict a child's risk of illness before they ever fall sick. We're on the brink of vaccines that could one day cure cancer. Weight loss jabs could help us finally defeat obesity. And this isn't just a medical revolution, it's an industrial revolution, a technological revolution, one that will shape the next century of jobs, industry, and public health. And governments across the world face a choice. It's not a choice between stop and go. Change is coming whether we like it or not. No, the real choice is this. Will this be a revolution for the few or for the many? Take just one example today, weight loss jabs. The wealthy talk about how they've transformed their health, their confidence, their quality of life. Half the House of Commons tea room talk about the impact they've had. Not in my case. But seriously, what about the millions who can't afford them? This is a return to the days when health was determined by wealth, when some had access to the best care money can buy, while others waited and suffered. And I say never again, because our historic duty and our modern mission is to ensure that the best science, the best healthcare, the best innovations are available, not just to some, but to all. So we will make the UK the home of the next generation of medical breakthroughs, discovered here, developed here and delivered here on the NHS. Science is changing society, and we've got to change with it, because when the NHS was founded, the average working person lived to just 65. They worked, they retired, and they died shortly after. But today, many of us can now look forward to something our grandparents only ever dreamed of: a life after work. The same is true for so many disabled people, surviving with conditions that would have cut their lives short, thanks to breakthroughs in medical science that allows them to not only survive, but to thrive. But friends, that hope demands action. Because if we want to match longer lives with better lives, then we must build a social care system to meet their needs. We've already begun to make that change. We've delivered the biggest uplift in carers' allowance since the 1970s, an extra £2,000 for family carers, because their work is not just loving, it is life-saving. We've installed new home adaptations in the homes of more than 15,000 disabled people, not just giving them new rails and chairlifts, accessible kitchens and bathrooms, but safety, dignity, independence, quality of life. And today, I can announce we will go further, because we will no longer accept a system built on poverty pay and zero-hour insecurity. We will back the first ever fair pay agreement for care workers, not just in law but in practice, starting with £500 million to deliver better pay, terms and conditions for care workers across our country, because the people who care for our loved ones should never have to struggle to care for their own. Conference, let's also be clear about how this change has come about. They're sat down there, Unison and GMB, who stood up for care workers when no one else would. Friends, you can go back to your members and tell them with pride, this is a difference that Labour unions in government make. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And there's someone else who's made a real difference too, who understands the struggle care workers face because she was one. She brought that experience to the cabinet table as the care worker who became our country's Deputy Prime Minister. Angela Rayner, this achievement is yours. Thank you. And we want her back as well. We'll definitely make sure she sees that. We need her back. In conference, I say this to you now, and to every family, every carer, every older and disabled person watching. So long as I hold this office, it will be the mission of this Labour government to build a national care service worthy of the name. And finally, we'll address the inequality in our National Health Service and our nation's health. Because if we fail to invest in public health and prevention, we will face a future where people are living longer lives, but in poorer health. And in the places with the deepest need, the NHS is at its most stretched, and the health of the people at its poorest. In the poorest parts of our country, there are an extra 300 patients per GP. 300 waiting, suffering. And the injustice doesn't stop there. A black woman in this country is twice as likely to die in childbirth than a white woman. A child born in Blackpool will now live 10 years fewer than a child born in Hampshire. 10 years. That is the unjust price paid by those who lost the lottery of life. And I stand here today as someone who beat those odds, the exception to the rule, who grew up on a council estate in poverty, had a great state education, made it to one of our country's best universities, and now sits around the cabinet table as part of the most working-class cabinet in British history. But conference, that's not enough. It's not enough for a few to beat the odds. Our party exists to change those odds for everyone. So the challenge of our generation is not just to add years to life, but to add life to those years. So as we rebuild the NHS, we're starting first where the need is greatest. As we reinvest billions saved from cutting waste as we recruit new GPs and as we build a new generation of neighbourhood health centres, they won't go to the places with the loudest lobbyists, but to the communities with the deepest deprivation. And we all know the biggest health inequalities are entrenched years before patients walk through the doors of the NHS. They're caused by poverty, poor diets, damp homes, dirty air. So this Labour government is tackling the sickness in our society. We're feeding the next generation with primary school breakfast clubs, so every child starts the day with a full stomach and a hungry mind. We're cutting pollution and cleaning up our air the children breathe to preserve our planet for the future too. We're helping families heat their homes this winter with a warm homes discount that will reach millions more. We're guaranteeing sick pay from day one because no one should have to choose between getting better and getting paid. And with the expansion of free school meals, we are lifting 100,000 children out of poverty. The Tories didn't do it. Reform would undo it. That is the difference a Labour government makes. Now we know some will say the challenges are too great, too expensive, it's too hard. But throughout our history, it has always been Labour, always, that rose to meet the moment. It was Labour that built the NHS out of the ashes of war. It was Labour that saved it in 1997, and it falls to Labour to save it now. We asked our country to put their trust in us, not because the challenges are easy, but precisely because they are hard. And modernisation, it's not a technocratic mission, it is a moral mission, because we do not believe in two-tier healthcare. We do not believe your postcode should determine your prognosis. We do not believe that the size of your wallet should decide the length of your life. We are making the NHS fit for the future, a service that sees people sooner, treats them better and gives them back more years of life. A service rebuilt in the image of our values, universal, publicly funded, free at the point of use, available to all, owned by all, working for all. Those are my values. They're the NHS's values and they are Britain's values. And conference, I'll just end with this. The fight against poverty and injustice, reactionaries and nationalists, prejudice and hatred, this is our fight. It has always been our fight. So we will not flinch. We will not fail. We will rebuild our national health and rebuild Britain for our time, for all time, for everyone. Thank you, conference.
Thank you, Wes, for such an inspiring speech. It was clearly very well received. Thank you very much for that. Conference, we will now move on to the votes in the order that they were debated. So for Composite 2, cleaning up our communities, fly tipping, those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Composite 13, staffing in adult social care, those in favour? Any against? That's also carried. Composite 11, subsidiary companies and insourcing. Those in favour? Any against? That's carried. Thank you. Composite 4, NHS dentistry. Those in favour? Any against? That's also carried. Thanks very much. And for the animations. Conference, I just want to remind delegates about the requirements around the leader's speech. The hall doors will be closed over lunch, so please do not leave any belongings in the hall over lunch because they will be removed. The hall will be reopened as soon as possible, but please remember that you will not be able to bring any large bags into the room. Only delegates with tickets will be admitted into the hall for the leader's speech, and seats not taken in good time will be filled. So I'd encourage you to get back in the hall as soon as possible. Delegates and those with tickets to come back into the hall very quickly. There's also a screening room in the auditorium 1A of the ACC for those who are not in the hall. Conference, thank you. We are now adjourned.
I've been burned, I've been broke, 20-something is just what it is. Been naive, been a joke, been a serial monogamist. Now I'm just trying to tell ya, but that was then, and this is now. Forever promises just let me down. If I'm being so candid, hold me and don't plan it. Just for hype for the night, yeah, that's my love language. No need for romantics, we don't need tomorrow's damage. Just for hype for the night, talking my love language. You're talking my, you're talking my. Just for hype for the night, talking my love language. Used to hold on for dear life, and even when it wasn't right, got real good making bad mistakes. Take it so hard, could kiss me, just walk in and fix me. And now love looks like Saturday, staying up late. But that was then, and this is now. Forever promises just let me down. I'm being so candid, hold me and don't plan it. Just for hype for the night, yeah, that's my love language. No need for
Can we please ask you to leave the hall as work needs to commence?